from the summary that was given to lawmakers from Bill Barr on Robert Mueller's findings, he found that, one, there was no tacit or express agreement by anybody on the Trump campaign team or Trump himself or within Trump's orbit to coordinate or conspire with Russia to affect the election. The other thing is on obstruction. They compiled all of the evidence on both sides on obstruction and allowed Bill Barr and Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein to make the determination whether or not the president obstructed justice. And both Barr and Rosenstein have said that they do not believe that the president obstructed justice. This, I imagine, is a good day for the president. He must be feeling relatively good right now.
He is, and he's probably feeling relatively good about his selection of Bill Barr as his Attorney General, because this memo and the initial understanding of what's in the Mueller report, this will color what's in the Mueller report before any of us actually see it. And so the two big determinations being, one, no evidence of any conspiracy with Russia and the Trump campaign. But the second, on obstruction, boy, I tell you, you know, Katie, it's very confusing in here. The report did not make a decision on obstruction. It's the Attorney General that's making a decision on obstruction. We already know he had a very expansive view of executive power on this front. So that isn't going to resolve the obstruction question as far as congressional Democrats are concerned in general, and probably many members of legal community. I think this is going to be a debate. But you can't have the debate until you see the actual evidence of the obstruction. And I'll just say this. I think politically, the president is being done a huge favor here by the fact that there is a predetermination on what the obstruction is from the Attorney General without anybody else seeing that evidence. And yes, it was Bob Mueller who left it to the AG and the Deputy AG. But again, it is their interpretation on this, not Mueller's, nor anybody else who's read this.
And that's not going to sit well with congressional leaders.
No,
it's also not going to sit well with a number of voters out there who want to see all of the evidence. Are we going to hear the same calls from Republicans going forward to see the entire report, to see what Bob Mueller compiled on the question of obstruction?
On paper, you would think this should be an easy call. The big question's been answered. If you believe obstruction politically was never going to be enough to get him, then you shouldn't be afraid of it politically on Capitol Hill. But we'll see. I mean, if it is politically not in the president's best interest to see the details of this report come out, because there's no doubt in my mind the details are going to be far worse than this summary. And right now, it's not going to feel better than it is for him right now, which is a definitive word on number one. Mueller says no conspiracy, not Barr. That is Mueller proof. That is a big deal. We know voters have a lot of faith in Mueller. A lot of people. That is Mueller saying that. I'll be very curious to see if Democrats will accept this conclusion, since that came from Mueller. On obstruction, Katie, I fully understand if there is a debate and dispute over this, because this was not Mueller's definitive word. This was Bob Barr's word. So this is where there'll be this fight. But again, politically, the toothpaste is already out of the tube, as they say.
Yeah.
So, you know, this isn't getting resolved in this country until November 2020.
No doubt about that. I mean, I think what we can take from this is that the investigations will continue in Congress, but ultimately, and who knows how long it will take to potentially see the rest of this report or what we are able to see, but ultimately this is going to go to the voters in 2020. And what the president is going to do, Chuck, and Steve Bannon's made this clear, and anybody who followed the 2016 campaign would assume as well, he's going to use this to his advantage, and the way he's been using it already in the past 2 years, saying that it's all a witch hunt. Right. There was no collusion, there was no conspiracy. When they couldn't find conspiracy or collusion, they moved on to something else. I am the victim here.
It's been good politics for him. It is how he spins up his base. It is how he keeps his base devoted to him. It is how he's politically survived. It is no way to politically thrive. It is no way to govern. He's not going to ever get the 60% to govern, but this is what he's going to do. It's going to be about surviving to the election and seeing if it's enough. And Democrats are going to be in this. They're going to get frustrated, perhaps, by how this investigation is going to get, perhaps how quickly they get to see the report. But there will be voter fatigue on this. And Democrats have to be very wary of that. And do they focus on the investigations, or do they focus on other issues that perhaps voters want to see focused on?
Well,
I think that will have an impact here too, on how aggressive Democrats are.
Well, what we've seen for the 2020 Democrats on the campaign trail so far is that they haven't been paying a ton of attention to the investigation, Chuck, and we saw that in 2018 as well.
The voters out there don't care.
They've been paying attention to issues.
Right word. They care about it, but they're not following it day to day.
They're not. And so what we saw from the Democrats, and one of the reasons why they did so well in 2018, they argue, is that they paid attention to the issues. They paid attention to health care and the economy and other things. If Democrats in Congress continue with the investigations into the president, continue with subpoenaing various members of his White House or members of his family or members of his orbit, and go down the road of trying to determine whether they think he obstructed justice and whether that potentially is an impeachable offense for this president, do Democrats risk overshadowing, drowning out what Democratic hopefuls for 2020 are doing on the campaign trail?
I think that is a risk. And at the same time, I understand the desire by others who say, wait a minute, you got to prosecute these things even when it's politically not, because if you don't, or if you don't attempt to, you're lowering the floor, you're lowering the bar again, and it is only going to reward this. But, I also have been having this own conversation. What would the founders have wanted in this situation? He's in a first term, not a second term. There is, and most people would agree, it's always better to let the voters make a determination in a democracy than a ruling group of elites, right? So it is a first term, and there is a lot to be said of let the public get all the information and let them make the determination themselves about whether they think he has the values to run the rule of law or not. To whether they trust him to be in charge of the criminal justice system, whether things like that. So there is an argument to be said that perhaps if you think back, what would the founders have wanted in this situation, given the time that we're in, they might say, take it to the voters. In a second term, it's a different situation. Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Beat the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.